live video. I hope you are fine. Today is a kind of gloomy, rainy day. So it's not that hot. Yesterday was like super hot, 27 degrees, like burning hot. This Canadian weather, it's so like up and down. One day it's hot, cool, like you don't know. But anyways, we're not complaining. We thank God for the weather. But today we're talking about country living rules that newbies make make not newbies make country living rules we're talking about, and we're talking about mistakes that newbies make when they move to the countryside and start their new life. Because as a newbie in this homesteading and countryside living and rural living, there are some rules that are there and you need to fit in. That is a big number one priority when you move in on a countryside property or you're going rural or something like that. Because you have to remember, when you're living in the city, everybody is there. It's just like a big mesh of everybody. But when you go to the countryside, rural living, it's a different situation. There's less people out there and it's more community oriented. So it's like country folks, they say they have their own rules, they have their own laws, they have their own things set in stone. And I think sometimes when people live in the city for all these, however long they live there, they don't understand like this kind of community, except if you grow up in like in a small town or you come from the Caribbean and you already had community. But if you're not used to that kind of stuff, there might be some things that you're not aware of. And so I'm just bringing light to certain things to you because I grew up in a community in the Caribbean, in the countryside, and we just do things a certain way. And when I moved to Canada, it's the same thing. I find the people in the countryside, they have their own tune that they dance to. They have their own, the way they run things in their area. And when you move to areas like that, you have to kind of get in tune with it once it's a good thing. I'm not saying to get in tune with things that are bad, but if it's things that are good and beneficial to you, it's a safety for everybody, I think you should get on board with it. So that is what we're going to really be talking about in this video. So as we can see, the world is just kind of upside down at this moment. Everybody's trying to see how they can buy property out in the countryside, how they can homestead, how they can move somewhere where they can buy land. And it's just like a movement that is happening right now because of all this economic crisis and all this madness that is happening in our society. People want to be self-sufficient. People want to be living off grid, growing their own food. This is like a priority for a lot of people. So when you look out there and you might see this beautiful country property and you're like, oh, I want to live out there. There are some standards and some expectations that the people who are already living there expect you to come and follow. So let's get into that. So the first expectation living rurally is friendliness. Now, when I lived in the Caribbean as a child, in the place where I was born, everybody's friendly. Everybody's friendly. You pass, you say good morning, you say hello. Children say hello to the elderly. It's just a community. Nobody passes by and just walk past you. That didn't occur. It's like a community. If you needed something, you can go to your neighbor. People are friendly. You know who's living next door. You know the neighborhood. So people are friendly. If you just moved into the neighborhood, you go meet your neighbor. You say, hi, this is my family. This is my husband. This is my kids. We live up the road. We have 3 acres of land. We have 1 acre of land, whatever. You make people know that you are there and you're the new family that move in. You tell them, okay, I'm here. If you need anything, you can call, you can come to me. I have XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I have animals. I have this, I have that. You go there and you be polite and you talk to people. So they say, oh, that's the new people who move next door. This is what it means to be friendly and polite when you move into countryside living or rural living. You don't just move into your place and you don't go say hi to your neighbor or something like that. No, don't do that. Because the minute time you do that, people are like, okay, these people are standoffish and people are just going to be like, we better stay away from them. They don't come and say hello. They don't, you know what I'm saying? So they're going to kind of put you in a bracket already. And that's why you don't want to happen. Because when you live in rurally, like you need your neighbors. Things are not close by. If something happened, you want your neighbors to come and help you. So that is why you need to be friendly and polite. That is the first thing you need to do. Be friendly and polite. Let people know who you are and tell them that you're available and that, they feel welcome to come to you, right? That's the first thing. The next thing, you want to be helpful to others when you move out in the countryside, living rurally. You want to be helpful to others. When you go introduce yourself, tell them, hey, listen, I have a wood cutter, I have a snow machine, I have this, I have that. If you need any help, call on me. I can cut your tree for you. I can do this. Make people know that you're a helpful person, that you're a generous person, and that you're here to join the team, the community. Now, not everybody in the community is nice, and maybe they don't have the characteristic like you or bubbly or whatever. But that still doesn't say that you don't have to say hi to them. Some people in my community, they're grumpy, you know what I'm saying? But that's how they are. But you still have to say hello, hi, how you doing? You still have to introduce yourself to them. Let them make the final decision if they want to be grumpy or if they don't want to be, nice to you or something. But at least you go there, like we say back home, and you show your face. You show your face and you take the initiative, right? Because you're the newbie in that area, right? So make people know that you're generous and that you're willing to help and that you're willing to participate in what is happening in the community. The next point is we're going to talk about animals. So if you move into a rural setting and you have animals, you have cows, you come with your sheep, you come with your dog, whatever animal you have a cat, whatever. Let people know, listen, I have a cat, I have a dog, I have a cow, I have some sheep, whatever. Let people know you have animals and what kind of animals you have. Because just in case, you have a horse or a donkey or whatever you have, let people know you have a dog. What color your dog is, whatever. This is my dog. So people know that it's your dog. If your dog get loose and somebody will bring it back to you, or they'll say, oh, it's a neighbor who just moved up their dog. That's her dog. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's the neighbor's horse. So that's the neighbor's donkey. Or that's the neighbor's cow. You understand? So they will know it's yours. They'll bring it to you if the animal get loose or the animal start wandering or stuff like that. They will know that the animal belong to you and there'll be no issue. But if you move in, nobody knows you have animal, you have cow, you have sheep, you have whatever, and you're not friendly to anyone. If your sheep get loose, if your dog get loose or something like that, they're like, these people up there, I don't know if it belongs to them since they don't talk to us. Let's just call the SPCA or let's just call somebody to come get it. They're not gonna come to you and ask you any questions because you didn't show yourself as a friendly person, as a presentable person, a person who just want to. You just acting like if you just want to be alone and people are going to leave you alone. If you come into a community in a rural setting and you act like if you're a person that want to be left alone, people are going to leave you alone and nobody's going to bother with you. So if your animals get loose or something like that and people find it, they're not going to come to you and say, okay, is that your dog? Whatever. They're just going to be like, this dog, it's a stray dog or something. You've never seen it before. It's a stray cow or something. Let's call the animal whatever. And then your animal is going to go to the animal protection wherever. And then you're gonna have to pay a fine to get it back or whatever it is. And that's what you don't want to happen. That is why it's so good to have good relationship with your neighbor. Make people know that you're new and you're moving here. So they'll be like, okay, let's bring her animal, her things, her dog, her goat, her sheep or whatever for her because we know they're loose. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing. Now, another thing I want to say about animals is you want to protect your animals and you want to have good fencing when you move into a new area. Because the worst thing that could happen is your goat or your sheep or your animals start wandering off on other people's property and consuming their vegetables and stuff that they planted. I just recently see this mother who moved into a rural area and she planted some bananas and some other things. And goats came and they ate it. Now this woman, first of all, she didn't have the money to buy this stuff because somebody gave her as a gift because she's a struggling single mom. But thank God she was able to buy this land and, somebody gave her some gifts of some plants and whatever. And the goats came and they ate it. You know what I'm saying? Because the neighbor, they didn't tie their goat. They just have their goat just roaming around all over the place, and they came through the fence and they ate her things. Things like that will get people angry because this woman, she didn't even have the money to buy those things. Somebody gave it to her, and then your animal come and eat it. That's annoying. So unless you are going to be willing to pay for stuff when people you damage people things, like tie your animals up and make sure that they don't wander off on people's property. And also prepare your property so that when you bring your animals, they will be in an enclosed area and they'll be secure so that they would not escape. You know what I'm saying? I mean, every now and then they might go feed your animal. You have a goat that is naughty and escape or whatever, but you're there at least, So that's basically it. Hi, welcome to the chat. So it's like, you just like, okay, I'm gonna run behind that goat, but at least you there, right? And you see that goat escape. So that's basically it. Now, when it comes to animals like dogs, like if you have a dog and the dog is barking consistently, like you need to have some kind of something. I'm good, you? So make sure that when you move into the countryside and you have animals that's rowdy, think about it really, really well. I know we all love our animals, right? I had dogs. I love my dogs. I don't have dogs right now. Hopefully I'm gonna get dog next year when I move. But it's like if you have a dog that like to escape or a dog that barks a lot, you have to have things in place so the dog don't bother other people. Or you have to be living like kind of far in where if your dog bark, it's not gonna bother people. So if you have a dog that's barking, you need to like look at the location where you're gonna buy, because you don't want to go there and disturb people. That's the worst thing ever. I am doing fine. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, so you don't want to have like animals that disturb people. No, where I live right now, yes, I do. I have an Instagram. It's the Israelite Woman Homestead. So where I live now, we have like a neighbor, but the neighbor is not really, really close to us, right? And they have dogs. I think they have like 3 dogs, 3 big dogs, but they don't live like really, really right next to us, right? But the dogs, they bark a lot. Now, because we're not close to them, it doesn't bother me too much. I already said my Instagram. It's Israelite Woman Homestead. Okay? I am talking about living in the rural countryside as a newbie, things that you should and should not do when you just move into a rural setting, when you buy a property or land or something there. That's what I'm talking about. So, it's just that you want to make sure that your animals are not disturbing people. So these people, their dogs are all the way down there, but I can hear them barking. Now, just imagine if they were living right next to me and the dog is barking consistently. That would have been really disturbing for me. Because sometimes at night, I leave my window open and I can hear the dog barking. But because it's not really, really close to me, it's just kind of far away. So it doesn't bother me too much because the dogs are barking. But I couldn't imagine if the dogs are close to me. Now, those dogs, they don't bark like every single day, but they bark at night because we have coyotes and we have like foxes and some other animals. And so at night, we can hear the coyotes out there. And then the dogs, they start barking because of the coyotes. But I know the dogs are chained up because if they let these dogs go, the coyotes are gonna they're gonna finish them because these they're in packs. Those coyotes, they're in packs. They're dangerous animals, and they come in packs. So you don't want to let your dog loose. So that's what I'm saying. Just be aware when you move in a country setting, in a rural setting. You don't go and disturb the peace with your dogs. The dogs are barking consistently and bothering people like that. So if I was living close by and my neighbor dog was barking 24/7, I go to the countryside to have peace and quiet. I don't want to hear any dog barking and disturbing me consistently, because there's some people, they have dogs, the dog is just barking consistently barking, 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 barking for no reason. No reason. I don't see any animals out there. I don't see any nothing, nothing. And I used to live in an area where people had dogs and the dogs were just barking continuously, which is so annoying and you cannot have your peace. So I'm glad that where I'm living right now, the neighbor is all the way down the road and I don't really have to worry too much about only at night the dogs really bark, or if they're going to walk dogs in the forest and the dogs are scared by something, dog bark. But the barking consistently, it's very, very, very annoying. Now, another thing is, hello, Atella, how are you? Welcome. Another thing is animals, right? When you have animals and you move into the rural countryside, now there's some areas that I don't know if it belongs to anyone or it's just free land, but people can you can go graze your goats or you can graze your sheep or whatever if you want to go graze it freely, right? So thank you, Atella. So you can go graze your animals there for free. But the thing about it is you cannot leave your animals there by themselves. If you want to go graze your animals, you can walk and graze your animal, that's fine. Once it's just like city land or it doesn't belong to anybody. But when you move to the countryside and you see like free grazing land, like don't just put your animals there to graze, because when you leave your animals there on their own unattended, then they're going to wander off and they are going to go into people's property. And I can tell you many stories about that. We have free land in the area. People go to graze the animals there, but they leave the animals there, then the animals wander off and go eat people's vegetables, trees, or whatever. You don't want to do that. As a newbie, you want to be standing there with your animal. I'm from the Caribbean. Tella. Yes, I'm from the Caribbean. Warm, hot Caribbean country. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And another rule that you want to be paying attention to, if you have animals and you like to graze your animals, you need to talk to the neighbors. You need to talk to people in the neighborhood and ask them, so can we graze? Can we not graze? Whatever, whatever, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So that's something that you need to do. The next thing is your property line. You're from Azerbaijan. Welcome. Wow, you're far away. So the next thing is, do you have an Instagram account from the person? I don't know what you're talking about, but I do have an Instagram. The Instagram is the Israelite Woman Homestead. The Israelite Woman Homestead. That's my Instagram. And if you look on my videos, you would see my Instagram. Go on to my video, my YouTube channel, and you'll see my Instagram on top there. So the next thing is your property line. Now, property lines can be a problem. A couple of years ago, my neighbor came to me and said, I would like to see the property line, because he bought his property after mine and we were boundarying on each other. So he wanted to make sure when he's planting his stuff, when he's using his tractor, he's not going on my line. And he's a nice, very nice person, and he wants to make sure that he's not, on my land. So he came to me and said, I am plowing and planting my stuff, and I want to make sure I just know the property line so I don't go over. So my husband asked me, where's the property line? I said, it's over there. We show him. He says, okay, great. I know exactly where it is, because there's a big iron mark right there. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a property line, you want to make sure that it's outlined with something, not something wood, because wood is gonna rot. You don't want to have something that's gonna be eaten by termites. No, you want to have something metal, or you want to have something concrete. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're gonna put your property line, you want to make sure it's like something tall, over 6 foot, 6 foot tall. If you're gonna put like a wood or something, or you're gonna put like maybe 8 feet or 4 feet or something tall, so everybody can see it. And then you're gonna put one at one end, then you're gonna put one at the other end. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like, you're gonna make like a 4-corner property boundary if your property is not fenced. You understand? So make sure you have good good boundary for your property, because you don't want to plant some kind of trees and then somebody cut the tree down and they say, oh, this is my boundary, this is not your boundary, and you and your neighbor is fighting for property. No, you want to make sure that the property is very defined and there's a mark there, a solid wood, not wood, a solid metal or a solid concrete, so nobody can move it. So he went there and says, oh, great, there's a big metal tall pole on one side. I know where it is. So that's something you want to pay attention to, because sometimes people can get very sticky when it comes to land. What do you think about wars? I think wars are not a good thing. It's not a good thing. But I think also that's something that we as the individual people, I don't think we have any control over that. Countries will always be fighting against each other. This has been happening for decades and decades and centuries. What is sad about wars is people get hurt, people get displaced, people lose loved ones, and that's the tragedies of wars. And I wish there was no wars, but sadly, if wishes were horses, we all would ride. So I hope one day we would not have any wars and people will be living in peace and harmony. But let's see. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Okay, so that's what I think about wars. So the next point is we talk about property line. Like I said, do not be planting any trees, okay? Because somebody can just cut the tree down, or the tree could die or something like that. Like, so just make sure your property line is very defined and you know exactly where it is, so you won't have any problems with your neighbor. And then if you're going to put a fence up also, make sure the fence is on your property line and it's not on the other people's property, right? We had an issue where a neighbor, before we moved to our property, a neighbor moved next door on our other property that we lived on. We still have the property anyways. But that neighbor, she moved 2 houses down from us. So it's my house. Well, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 houses. I'm in the end, neighbor in the middle, and then her in the opposite end. And the neighbor that's on the opposite, on the other side of the new neighbor that's moved in, there's a boundary because we have pine trees going across on all of the properties. Pine trees going across to separate us. One, we have the pine tree separation, and then the neighbor, we have a fence behind. So this new neighbor who comes in, she didn't ask about the rules of the area. Neither did she find out where her property boundary was. And she called in a company to cut all the trees on her side that is backing onto the neighbor on her right side. Now, unfortunately, the trees on her right side is right on the property boundary, but the trees belong to the neighbor and not her. And she thought the tree belonged to her. She didn't ask any question. She didn't ask anybody any question. It's the same thing on my side. Like, my neighbor, she put a fence between me and her, but the trees belong to me. And if she has to cut the tree, she have to ask me. I tell her, okay, she can trim the trees up, the branches that stick out on her side, but don't trim it too much because I don't want like the privacy to be taken away. So she put up a fence. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, she called a company, and then the company come in. We all see the company come in, right? So we're like, who is this company? Where is this tree company coming, and whose tree they're gonna cut? So the company came and asked, I think the neighbor on the other side or something like that, which trees they're gonna cut. And it just happened that the same neighbor who the tree company asked which tree we're supposed to cut today was the trees that belong to the neighbor. That's the same neighbor, right? Because the neighbor who called them, she haven't come home yet to greet them. So the neighbor was like, what are you talking about? I didn't call you to cut my trees. The company was like, yeah, we have a signed document here saying we have to cut all the trees on that side. He says, are you crazy? These are my trees. You can't cut my trees. Did I give you authority to cut my trees? At the same time, the new neighbor, she comes in and she's like, yeah, I'm the one who called you. I want the trees to be cut. And then she and the neighbor who the tree belongs to get into a problem. And then she found out that the trees did not belong to her. You understand? So that was a big commotion in our neighborhood. And the neighbor was so upset. He didn't speak to her again because he was so mad, and he started shouting and yelling. And of course, she lost the money because she didn't do her research. And it kind of created a problem in the neighborhood between her and the neighbor. And just to see that her house is right here and this is her neighbor on the other side. So they had a problem. And then both him and his wife never spoke to her again. And they were very, very upset. Because we all love trees. You know what I'm saying? We all love trees. And when we all move in that neighborhood, we didn't really cut any trees. We just trimmed them, the trees that are in the way. But anyways, man, that caused a problem. And the neighbor came and he complained to us, and he complained to the other neighbor, and he complained. He was just complaining. I said, this lady come in the neighborhood and she wanted to cut my trees. And the trees were like maybe about 15 trees. Like, was a whole boundary going all the way down. Beautiful, tall trees. So like, it was just crazy. So then when she came to talk to me, she said, oh, you know, the neighbor, he's so upset at me about the trees. But I told her, I said, did you ask any one of us about the trees? We all know the boundaries. We know everything in this neighborhood. Like, you should have asked one of us. Like, you should not have just gone and get a company to cut the trees. God forbid if the neighbor wasn't there and you had cut his trees, what would have happened now? You know, like, he could have taken you to court and whatever. Anyway, that thing is resolved. And the neighbor, they don't talk to her at all because he's still upset about this tree business, you know? So anyways, so this is something that I'm talking about. Like, make sure you know your property line, right? The next thing is, don't interfere in people's business in the neighborhood. If something is happening in the neighborhood and you're not involved or you're not asked, like, don't be interfering in the business, okay? Something in our neighborhood we have a neighborhood watch in our neighborhood. So this woman and her husband, she decided to be the neighborhood watch. This is fine. She likes to do that stuff. And then she goes around and she tells everybody, okay, this happened today. This happened, guys, be careful, do this. And then she puts up a camera and she, you know, for our streets, at least, you know, she likes to do that. You understand what I'm saying? And she says, you know, well, we noticed there was a stranger. We noticed this. We don't, you are like, she's just like the neighborhood watch. And if something happened, you know, she would inform people. But if something is happening and nobody involved you, like, don't be involved. It's like the two neighbors there, I told you they were having a disagreement with the trees. Everybody knew because we heard the shouting and everything like that. We just stand afar and listen from afar. Nobody kind of joined in or whatever until we were like invited. Like, a neighbor came and said, look, knocked the door and said, da 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 da. Then the other neighbor came and knocked and said, da 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 da. You understand? That everybody in the neighborhood now is involved and we all give our opinion and say, well, you know, you shouldn't have done that, whatever. But if it's not your business, don't be involved because you're going to cause a rift in the neighborhood. And you want to build that community. You want to keep that nice environment in the community, and you don't want to cause problems because when something happens, all the neighbors depend on each other because you live in rural, right? You live in rural, and when something happens, somebody's going to bring their tractor to, if a tree fall, people is going to bring their tractor to pull it down for you. If you need anything plow, somebody's going to plow for you. So country living is like a, you know, it's, if you want to slaughter an animal, everybody's going to come together and help you slaughter, and we're going to share the meat. It's like a nice living. So you don't want to come and like just cause problems. So when you move into a country setting, like, do not cause problems or get yourself into other people's business that it doesn't belong to you. Because if somebody has a problem with somebody, then you go and involve yourself, then before you know it, you have a problem with that people, that you're like stuck, right? So please mind your own business unless you're invited, okay? The next thing is, don't change things without asking, right? Like cutting people hedges, cutting people trees, putting boundaries, putting fences. Another thing is fences. Now, in some places, people don't like fences. Like, so if you move into on your own property and you don't see anybody have a fence, like the whole property is fenced, please don't go fence around your entire property. All right? Don't do that. You go in this rural area, you see everybody property is wide open. Okay, they have the animal area fenced in and the garden fencing or whatever. Just do the same. But if you go there now, you put up like a 6-foot wall all around your property. All right? What? Like, you come in and you like ruining the aesthetics of the community. And the next thing is you like just telling people to stay out. So don't do that. Okay, that's not a rule. What do you think? What do you think about what? A teller, I don't know what you're talking about. You have to give me a question. What do I think about what? I already answered you, but what do I think about wars? but I don't know what's the question you asked. So can you ask it again? So yeah, don't do that. Don't go put up some kind of boundary all of a sudden, and then people are passing by like this 6-foot wall. Like, I don't think these people like us. I don't think they want us to be in the neighborhood. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you. No, sorry, Atella. I'm already married. So anyways, these are things that you don't want to be doing, okay? Don't be asked, don't be like, putting up fences and doing all kind of stuff when you see in the community like nothing like that is happening. So basically, like when you move into when you bring in things in your neighborhood, make sure it suits with what's in the neighborhood already. Like, don't be doing something that's is not, it's just not conducive to the neighborhood. It's like we live here, nobody have a fence where I live. No one has a fence. The whole area here, nothing is fenced. Everybody's just like, everything is like wide open, So it's just like, what I'm saying? It's just like, why are you gonna do that? Why are you gonna go put a fence? Why are you gonna do certain things? You're just gonna annoy people. Now I know this is your land. You buy it with your own money and everything like that, and you want to do certain things, but you have to keep in mind that in certain areas there's rules and there's regulations, and you don't want to be like the sore thumb or somebody outside of the box, just doing random things and getting people annoyed. So like, you don't want to do that. The next thing is noise. Okay. Now, besides the dogs and animals and stuff, I know you're living out there. You love being out in the rural countryside and stuff. But people in the rural countryside, we go to bed early. And it's dark out there. Like, there is no street lights out there and everything like that. So most people have the generator. We have, those big lights outside if you want to go make bonfire, if you want to go whatever. Now, you may have your workshop and you want to be out there with your big generator and your big light, and you want to be working on cutting stuff and making noise. Please don't do that. Be reasonable. You can have your workshop and you can do stuff, but just make sure you keep it at a reasonable hour so you don't annoy people at night. When people want to sleep, you'll be like running a chainsaw, you'll be like running your generator, like all kind of stuff like that. You don't want to do that if you're living close to people. Because sometimes you buy land, you may have 1 or 2 acres, and the person next door may have 1 acre. So you're relatively close, right? Like me, I'm not relatively close to anybody. Anything that I'm doing, nobody can hear me, or my neighbors are really far apart. So we're not gonna bother each other. If somebody's doing something, you hear faint noise, but not close enough to like really, really disturb you. Like, but you have to be mindful of like when you're living in a rural country, people expect peace and quiet. So you don't come with a big generator and making noise, boom, or you come with like your friends, with all your Harley Davidson friend with the motorbike and they run the bike. Like, no, you don't want to do that. You're gonna disturb people. They're gonna complain about you. You are disturbing the peace of the rural setting. So things like that, like, you don't want to do. Something else when you're living in a rural setting. If you have a big garden or you have extra stuff, so it's like you want to share with people. You have like, say like you're a person like us, we can a lot. So what we do is we give stuff to our neighbors, right? I make soap. I would give soap to my neighbors. People like that kind of stuff. Or like, oh, my neighbor makes soap. Oh, my neighbor can stuff. You know what I'm saying? It kind of strengthens the community. It builds community. If my neighbor has something, he brings it for us. My neighbor has a nice wood cutter. He brings it. He's like, hey, I'm dropping off the wood cutter. I know you guys are going to be cutting wood soon, Like at the end of August, we start like cutting wood for the fall. He's like, oh, I'm dropping that over for you guys. Because you build community, you build friendship, you build relationship. Your neighbor is going to be happy to lend you his stuff. When I can some stuff, I'm like, oh, let me just take some for my neighbor. You know what I'm saying? We had a big storm. Nothing happened to our house or anything. We just lost 3 trees, big trees. But in my neighborhood, people lost a lot of things, trees, animals. My neighbor's farm got damaged. You know, um, good thing his cows wasn't damaged. But it's just like a lot of people got losses. People lost their barn because we had a huge storm. But because we live in the way our house is and how it's located, and we have a windbreak, two windbreaks actually that stops the wind. So when the storm subsided, who did we see? We heard this noise. Who did we see? Our neighbor, our first neighbor, our closest neighbor, was like right there with his huge how do you call that? It's like I don't know. It's a vehicle that you there's a name for it. I don't remember the name, but it's like a big four-wheeler vehicle that you can ride, through rough terrain. I don't remember the name of that vehicle, but he was there with his kids, blowing. He's like, "Are you guys all right? We just checking. We lost some trees. The road is blocked." And he had his chainsaw and he had his tools on it, and he's like, "I'm coming to see if anything happened." I mean, we have chainsaws too. We have like chainsaw. But he was so quick to come up with his family, and he's like, "Okay, guys, let's get into our vehicle. Let's go see what happened to our other neighbors." And we all got into our vehicle. We started clearing the road so we can drive, and everybody just helping each other. Our trees fell down. He went around. He's like, "Oh, your trees fell down, man. We're gonna come back later. Good thing it didn't fall on the house. Our trees didn't fall on our house, so that was good. And our chickens are fine." And he's like, "Okay, we're gonna come back later and we're gonna help you cut those trees because those trees are huge." And we were very sad about those trees that fell. We went up the road. The road was blocked. We couldn't drive. We stopped and we cut the trees, so we can drive and go up. We reach a little bit higher up. The road was totally blocked. We see our neighbors at the top. They're like, "Neighbors, we were trying to come down. We couldn't come down because everything was blocked." There was like 30 telephone posts fell down. Actually, all the telephone posts in our street fell down. Everything. We had no electricity, and the big trees, they just fell, and the road was blocked for miles. And our neighbors already up the road, they were like already starting to cut the tree. The farmer barn was totally destroyed, like his huge barn with all his animals. We had one neighbor who lost a cow. But it's just like everybody was out there just helping, and just trying to clear the road. By the time the city got to our area, our entire road was clear because the entire neighborhood came out and cleared the road. Because our road is a main country road that branch off to other roads. So we cleared the road. The telephone posts, they pushed them on the side. And when the city came, they were like, "Whoa, you people are like on it." You know what I'm saying? They had to clear some parts way up where people are in forested areas. There are not a lot of houses up there. And there's more older people in that neighborhood living over there. But it was so great. So if you come and living in a neighborhood now and you're like all stuck to yourself, when something happened to you, nobody's gonna come help you. They were like, "Okay, they build a big fence." That means they don't want anybody to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it is. Like when I have eggs, I sell eggs, right? But like the extra eggs that I have, I just bring it to my neighbor. I say, "Hey man, neighbors, I'm bringing you guys some eggs." They know I sell eggs. But any extra eggs that I have, I bring it for them. Or sometimes my neighbor comes and says, "You have eggs, man. I feel like eating your eggs." Because you have that relationship. You know what I'm saying? When you move rurally, make sure you go in there and you fit in. You fit in. You have a truck. I have a truck. Man, I have a truck. If you want to carry something, yeah, you can borrow my truck. We do that all the time. Our neighbors borrow our vehicles. We don't have a problem with that. So that is the kind of relationship that you want to have when you move in countryside. Now we know not every neighborhood is like that. We know some people, yes, random vintage, we have really nice neighbors. Honestly, I can't complain. Now we know that there's some people they're the devil. You understand? So you have to be aware of that. But if you go in an area and you have good neighbors, man, take advantage of that. Well, yeah, we let them drive our van because sometimes situations happen and something happened to their vehicle and they need to go pick up their vehicle or something happened. Yeah, we know that they're careful and they would not like do something purposely to to cause a problem, and like if you're gonna, these people, remember, the people that I'm talking about, they've been in that area for decades. You know what I'm saying? So they know how to do things. We are the newbies who coming in there. They're kind of seasoned in that system already, and they're honest people. Like when you live around people and they're honest people, you don't have to really worry about them. But if you live around sketchy people, there is no way you're gonna do that, because I mean, we lived among them for a while, and we see how they behave towards us, so we don't have no reason to not trust them. You know what I mean? So that was one of the reasons. And trust me, if it was us who needed something, they would definitely give us, because there's many times, like I said, the woodcutter, you have these big machines, whatever, he would just lend it to us for weeks, and we'll be trying to cut the wood fast and say, oh, bring it back, maybe he needs it, and he'd be like, you bring it back already? Like, you can keep it, man. Keep it and cut all your wood. I'm not cutting my wood until like the second week in September. Stuff like that. If my husband need a tool or something, he has a huge garage full of stuff. And he'd be like, come in the garage and look for the tool that you need. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So, that's why I say, like, building a relationship with people it's really, really, really important. And now that we're gonna move somewhere else in a new rural area, this is the kind of neighbors that I'm looking for. This is the kind of environment that I want. But when you go in this kind of environment, you gotta prove people. You gotta see people's attitude, their behavior, if they're greedy, if they're stingy, stuff like that. You gotta look for when you living among people, because you got to test people, like the scripture says. You got to prove them to make sure they're okay, they're up and up, they're not crazy, they're not loony people. You know what I mean? But eventually, looniness will come out at some point, and you would know. You know what I'm saying? You would know. But like everybody who's been watching my channel, you know, right? Like, we love living in the countryside, and yes, we are. You should be watching my channel. We're moving on the continent. So anyways, so yeah, so go watch my Africa video. Go watch my Africa video. I have a playlist for Africa video, telling you people moving to Africa, what you need, da 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 da, how to buy land. I have a whole playlist on that stuff. All right. But anyways, as I was saying, it's like you need to like prove people, see how they are. Make sure they're not loonies. Make sure they're not crazy people, kidnappers, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? I think God is good. And if your mind is in the right place and your heart is in the right place, I think you will be okay. The point about all of this is, when you go in an area, you have to be careful, but you also have to put out some things. Like, you have to put out some things. You can't expect people to just come to you all the time, or give you everything that you need, and you're not doing anything. You're just waiting for people to come. You want to borrow people's stuff. You want people to do stuff for you, but you're never offering to do anything. You're never giving anything. You're just standing offish. It's a two-way street. Relationship is a two-way street. You want information, give information. You know how to do a skill, show people how to do the skill that you have. Somebody come to you, ask you a question about something, be genuine, answer the question nicely, show them stuff, stuff like that. It's like sometimes a neighbor come to my house and they ask me something. I'm like, oh, come inside. Let me show you. Da 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 da. I bring the person inside my house. I said, look, this is the thing here. This is how I do it, blah, blah, blah. You want me to come to your house and show you, this is what I do, So the person is like, oh, this person's a really genuine person. She showed me things from her heart. She just not like saying, she just can't be bothered. Leave me alone. I moved to the countryside to be alone. Why people are bothering me? Like, even if you think that, like, why is it bothering me all the time? Like, don't show that. Don't show people like bad face. Be genuine, be kind, be helpful, because you don't know when your turn is gonna be. You just don't know. One time I was pregnant, and I went into a sudden labor, and it was the middle of the night, and my neighbor is the first one I went to, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry, just send the kids over." It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and she's like, "Send the kids over. We're gonna watch the kids for you, and go to the hospital." And me and my husband went to the hospital because my mom wasn't close by. Nobody was close by. You know what I'm saying? So my neighbor was there, and she and her husband, and they took my kids, and me and my husband were able to go to the hospital. And then, we was able to call relatives to come. Because that was an emergency situation, and an emergency could happen to you. But if you're not good with your neighbors, they'll be like me. You'll be knocking on their door and they're pretending they're sleeping, they're not coming. So guys, that's basically it. Manel, have you ever run away from home as a child? Manel, no. I never run away from home as a child because my home was very beautiful. I enjoy my home. I lived in the mountains. We had everything that I could dream of, fruit trees. Life was amazing. I loved where I live. I love my family. So there was no need for me to run away from home at all whatsoever. But I know people are not happy with their homes, and sometimes people do run away from home. And it's very sad. It's very sad to hear about that. But I'm glad that, the Most High had blessed me with a good life. And I give him honor and praise and thanks for that. And we're not rich people, but we always had food to eat. We always had clothes, and he always provided for us. And I think once you are contented with such things that you have and you appreciate the things that you have, you will be taken care of. Because even if your family don't take care of you, other people will step in and do something for you. But your heart have to be in the right place. Sometimes people think, oh, they can do all kind of evil, they can be wicked, they can be unkind, and they expect goodness to come to them, but that's not how the universe works. You need to be a good person, then good things will follow you, you know? And I say that all the time. People may irritate you, people may not like people, but it doesn't give you any reason to be nasty to anybody or to be unkind. Always smile, always be unkind. Always be kind to people and not be unkind, because the universe doesn't like unkindness. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just need to go there and hug somebody because they're having a bad day. Sometimes you just need to give somebody $1 or $2 so they can eat a meal. Sometimes you maybe need to take off your shoes on your feet and give it to somebody because they're not wearing any shoes. And it's okay. You will get another pair of shoes. Just the fact that you have shown kindness to somebody who are in need, the kindness will gonna come back to you. Maybe you're not gonna get another pair of shoes, but maybe you're gonna get something that you least expected. I've done so many kind things to people, which I'm not even doing the kind thing because I want some reward. And years later, somebody do something amazing for me, and I was like, huh? And then the person remind me, do you remember me? You met me XYZ years ago and you did this for me. I'm like, I can't even remember, but that's how the universe works, and that's how the Most High works. So be kind when you're out there. Smile. You're alive and you're breathing. That means life is good. Okay? So, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you that always come to watch my live. Go and watch my channel and see all the good things that I post there. And remember to stay positive. Give somebody a hug. Give somebody a smile. Help an old lady. Help an old man. Get up and give somebody a seat if you're on the train or on the bus, if you're a young person. Like, just show kindness. If you have $10 and you can give somebody $2, please give it to them. Like, we need to be more kind and generous in this world today. So guys, thanks for watching. Ciao, ciao. Stay positive. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, that.